Good afternoon and welcome to Daily Red Devil and welcome to the Manchester United versus Galatasaray live press conference reaction. We will be bringing you all of the main talking points from the press conference, and as I just said, we'll be reacting to it. I'll be getting you guys' opinions. Do get involved in the live chat, get involved in the comment section, and make sure to smash a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So let's start off with the first couple of words that Ten Hag has been asked about. He's asked about his reaction to the defeat against Crystal Palace on Saturday. Erik Ten Hag says, "We are disappointed about the result. You have to analyse the game, see the problems and move forward." I agree with that, but we do have to move forward, okay? We've lost to Brighton at home. We've lost to Crystal Palace now. We lost to Tottenham. We lost to Arsenal. We've lost 4 games out of our first 7. It's our worst start to a season ever by way of losses in Premier League history. It's 4 defeats out of 7. Absolutely awful. Yes, you can say that we're disappointed. Yes, you can say that we need to analyse the game and move forward. But will we move forward? That's the big question. And that's where Erik Ten Hag is really going to be judged on. Do we go into the next game and get some wins, or is it just the same old over and over again? Let me know what you think about that in the comment section and in the live chat. Erik Ten Hag is then asked about team news ahead of the game against Galatasaray tomorrow. Erik Ten Hag says the following. He says, "Antony will be in consideration, but yesterday was his first time back in team training. We have a final training, then we'll make a decision." So we might even see Antony tomorrow against Galatasaray. That just shows how limited our squad is at the moment, that Erik Ten Hag likes Antony so much. He's been in Brazil for 2 or 3 weeks away from the team, all of this stuff going on off the pitch, and he's genuinely being considered to start the match tomorrow after 1 training session. I mean, that's pretty mad. I guess professional athletes stay professional, 100% the whole time, but yeah, I'm not sure whether Antony was going to be available for tomorrow. Like, really, that seems too soon to me, but he's the manager. He's then asked about how he can explain the poor run of results so far. He says, "I think I don't agree with the lack of progress. The team is moving forward, but we have to make adjustments as well. When you don't have a left back fit, we have to change, and we did. At the end of the day, it's about results, and we didn't get the result we are looking for, which is very disappointing." I wouldn't say we've made any progress, to be honest, since last season. I think we're in a very similar situation to where we were last season. If you actually look at it very honestly, I wouldn't say we've gone backwards. I would say we're in the same place. Last season, we were very lucky in a lot of games. We defended well in a lot of games. We haven't defended well this season. We got quite a few moments of magic type goals from Rashford, Bruno, people like that. That hasn't really happened this season. I would say that game against Crystal Palace, I thought we looked unbelievable, the 3-0 victory. I would say the first 20 minutes against Tottenham and Arsenal, we looked really good, but we don't seem to be able to do it for 90 minutes consistently, week on week. I can see what Erik Ten Hag's trying to do, but the big question is, can Erik Ten Hag do what he wants to do and play how he wants to play with this set of players? That's the question. That's the bit that I'm unsure about. And that's not that's not me pointing the finger at Erik Ten Hag. That's me pointing the finger at the players. Are they the right people for the job? We'll have to let you know. Now, obviously, as well, for anybody who's unaware, Raphael Varane is also in the press conference alongside Erik Ten Hag. And Varane has been asked a question on what he thinks about the Champions League. Varane says, "I think the competition is about details. You have to be efficient to win it. In the last weeks, we can improve that. Being better in front of goal. We need to create a lot to score, and that's the reality of the top level. You must be efficient to win trophies. We have the quality in the squad to win the competition, but we have to improve." Yeah, I mean, I somewhat agree with what he's saying there. Like, we definitely do need to be better in front of goal, but we also need to be better defensively as well. Like, we've been really, really poor defensively. Like, last season, I think, obviously, we got the Golden Glove, didn't we? Our defence looked pretty solid. I guess you could argue that, Varane's been injured, Martinez has been injured, Luke Shaw's been injured, Wan-Bissaka's injured, Reguilon's injured now, Malasia's injured. We've had a lot of issues. Even Maguire was injured for a while. We've had a lot of issues with our defence, and I think, as everybody knows, your whole team is built on your defence. And our defence has been a bit all over the place by way of, who we've been able to start games and stuff. The fact that Maguire, Johnny Evans, Lindelof, those are kind of our starting centre-backs now. Now that Martinez is out for 3 months, we will see Johnny Evans starting, we'll see Maguire starting, we'll see Lindelof starting every single game, which isn't good enough for a team of our level, I don't think, personally. But let me know what you think about that. Let me know whether you think that, the injuries are a good enough excuse. The thing is, I just don't really like excuses in football. Like, we can blame the referees, we can blame injuries, we can blame this, we can blame that, but should we not just be held accountable for how we play on the pitch, for not really improving, for conceding loads of goals, for not being able to score goals? Like, it's very, very easy to just keep blaming the referees and keep blaming the injuries. And I do agree with what Milas is saying in the chat. Like, I don't feel like we have made any progress since last season. I don't think we've gone backwards. I feel like we're in the same position as where we were. We are only 7 games into the season, though, remember, okay? We still can turn things around. I still believe in Erik ten Hag. I still think he's the right man for the job. I think I'm more questioning, as always, the players. Are these the right players for Erik ten Hag? Erik ten Hag is then asked about referees. He says, I don't give comments often on refereeing because they do what they need to do. The standards need to be high. You can expect, the fans can, a high standard. So it should be, because it's the Premier League, I'm sure they do what they can. I trust them. So Erik ten Hag is not saying anything bad about the referees. He's been very, very hush-hush about that. Yeah. So it is what it is, isn't it? We all know that the refereeing's been poor this year across all of the teams, not just us. You know, Liverpool, that situation yesterday with Liverpool at Tottenham was a disgrace. We've had so many chances so many opportunities that should have been penalties. We've had goals disallowed, which were questionable. The Rashford one against Arsenal. The list goes on and on and on. The Tottenham handball on Romero, that was definitely a penalty. But fair play to Erik ten Hag for not kind of calling out the referees. I think that just digs yourself a bigger hole than he's already in. He's asked again about team news ahead of the game tomorrow, and he said, I can confirm that Martinez will undergo surgery, and the team news is that Antony can probably return. So in relation to injuries, it looks like the only person coming back will be Antony. There's going to be no Sancho, no Kobe Mainoo, obviously no Malacia, Shaw, Wan-Bissaka. Obviously Martinez is about to have surgery, so it looks like the only name on the team sheet who wasn't there on Saturday will most likely be Antony. Maybe we'll see Altay Bayındır, as somebody says in the chat. I mean, obviously he has just come from the Turkish league. Maybe that would be an interesting lineup to have him start a game. I think he'll just start Onana personally, but if it's up to me, which obviously it isn't, I would have Pellistri, I'd have Martial, Garnacho, Hannibal. I'd get Altay Bayındır a go. I would completely change it up. I think we've got no reason not to do that. We're at home. I think we need to show real determination and grit to go and beat Galatasaray tomorrow. They're a much more difficult side than Crystal Palace. They've got some really, really good players. So yeah, I think it's going to be a difficult contest. And yeah, obviously after the weekend's result, all I can say is that we need to change our team, really. Comeback Kings is saying Højlund has to score goals. Yeah, I agree, but Højlund's not really getting any chances, you know. So I'm not going to point the finger at Højlund, because at this point, it's not like he's missing 5 sitters a game, you know. Erling Haaland gets probably 3 or 4 goal-scoring opportunities a game, and he scores 2 or 3 goals, 1 or 2 goals a game, right? Rasmus Højlund's had literally next to nothing. He's literally just surviving on scraps, as all of the Manchester United strikers have been over the last couple of years. So I'm not going to start blaming Rasmus Højlund at this point. Right, and then Varane talks again. Varane's asked, he says, yes, I think so. United can win the Champions League. The quality is in the squad. The competition is difficult. You have to take every detail, but we have a team with quality, a good mentality. We have to make some more improvements. It wasn't the start to the season we expected, but I still believe we can compete with the best teams in the world. I mean, you've got to obviously come out and speak to your team, and big up your team. But for Varane to genuinely think that we can win the Champions League, like, surely that is the biggest load of rubbish ever. I mean, anything can happen in football. Like, you wouldn't expect Inter Milan to be in the Champions League final last season. So you can never say never. If we win the game tomorrow, we beat FC Copenhagen at home next week, you never know. We might get out of the group, and then we might get an easier tie in the next round. And then you never know when it's in knockout football. Anything can happen. You might have a Rashford moment of magic, and then we might park the bus for the rest of the game and get through it. But based on what our identity is trying to be, I don't think we can win the Champions League. But if you get lucky, moments of magic, park the bus football, anything can happen. So I'm not going to completely disregard what Varane's saying there, because obviously there is a chance that we win the Champions League, but it's very, very small in my opinion. But obviously he has to say that. He's not going to come out and say we're all rubbish. We're going to go down to the Europa League and then get knocked out to some team you've never heard of, you know. He's obviously not going to say that. Erik then says, what message did Antony send to the rest of the squad upon his return? Which I think is quite an interesting question. Ten Hag said, Antony cooperated fully and it came out he's not charged, So he's defending Antony. Obviously, the Greenwood situation was very different. Greenwood was charged, which obviously meant that there was a proper criminal investigation going on. At the moment with Antony, it's just allegations. So he did cooperate fully, which we all know. He did his interview. He put up statements on his Instagram. He was, willing to speak to the police and cooperate. So I guess there isn't really much else to say about the Antony situation at the moment. I think, obviously, there's not much more you can expect Erik ten Hag to say, really, is it? It's just an allegation at this point. We'll have to wait and see whether that becomes anything more than that, whether they actually press charges. Obviously, at that point, we can then talk about that. But at this stage, there isn't really anything other than speculation. Varane's then asked about his opinion on the younger players. And Varane says, I think they're all doing really well. They bring energy to the team. They are still learning, which is normal. And the players with more experience, it's important to lead by example. We have a lot to do. And as leaders, we have to show them and talk to them. Hopefully, they can bring the talent and passion to the pitch and improve the squad. Well, I'll say this, Varane. They've showed more talent and passion this season. Those young players, the Hannibals, the Pelistris, the Garnachos, the etceteras, right? Those lot have showed more passion and talent than any of our first team players, in my opinion, this season. So I would start the majority of them yesterday. And I think that the biggest thing that Erik ten Hag could do would be to drop people like Rashford. I like Rashford, but he's not in good form at the moment. He looks like he's in a really bad place. I guess arguably, though, Rashford's the type of player who he needs that goal to start kind of his confidence, you know what I mean? So maybe dropping him doesn't really help in that way. He seems like he does need motivation from getting like a goal to really kickstart his season. But I think if we actually want to win a game tomorrow, I think you do have to start those younger, more hungrier players who are actually going to give 110% for the club. They're going to run like no one else. They're going to press like it's their last ever game of football. You're not going to get that from Rashford. You're just simply not. He's the type of player who gets the ball, shoots from outside the box. It either goes in or it doesn't, and that's Rashford's game realistically. Obviously, he can take on people. Obviously, he's got skills and stuff, but from a team's perspective, he doesn't really offer anything from a kind of a team, an overall perspective. Erik ten Hag's then asked about his opinion on why the players are underperforming. He says, you have to deal with it. Experienced players know how to deal with it, and it's not the first time we're in this situation because that's a career. It's not only highlights, it's a journey, and that will have bumps. Now it's about the character, what you have to show, and how to get out. There are many positive, but we need to improve things. I get this whole thing of like, it's a journey, but like our journey so far has led us to lose 4 games out of 7. Like 1 loss, I think is fine. 2 losses maybe starts raising question marks. As soon as you've lost more games than you've won, like that is a concern, isn't it? And it's all good and well saying it's a journey and all the rest of it, but when does our journey become consistent, good quality football? That's the question that all of us as fans are asking, isn't it? When do we start actually seeing this Erik ten Hag football on a regular basis? Is it when people leave? Is it when we have a whole new squad? Is it when we just play the youth? Like, I don't know what the answer is to that. And that's ultimately the thing that Erik ten Hag will be judged on over the next kind of season or two, is how quickly he can get his players to actually play in his style on a consistent basis, because the fans aren't going to keep putting up with it. They're simply not. They're not going to put up with it. You know, the journey so far last season, I was quite happy with it. I thought the football was pretty poor, but we got top 4 and we won a trophy. I thought Erik ten Hag did well in those circumstances with a squad of somewhat average players. I think when you compare them to the Man Cities, when you compare them to like the Liverpools and all the rest of it, I think their squads were better. At least their first 11's better. Maybe not the whole squad. I think we have got quite a good squad, but on paper, our first 11, when you actually look at it, you know, the team that's going to start tomorrow, you know, you haven't got Luke Shaw. Some people don't even like Luke Shaw. You know, there's all these people who were like, oh, we don't have Luke Shaw, but then there's some people who don't even like him. So yeah, it's a bit of a difficult one to kind of give an opinion on. But it's at the end of the day, right, it's Erik ten Hag's job to get these underperforming players to perform. I know that sounds a bit obvious, but that is his job, isn't it? He needs to motivate them to perform. And if it reaches a point where he can't motivate them anymore, then that's when question marks have to start being asked. I don't think we're at that point yet, personally. But obviously, we you know, yeah. Erik ten Hag is then asked about tomorrow's game against Galatasaray, and he says top football is all about results. But if the execution is not right, the process is not right, you don't win. So both, what's more important, result or display? I mean, he's kind of saying there that the players aren't really doing what he's asked them to do, isn't it? He says if the execution is not right and the process is not right, you don't win. Which sounds kind of obvious, but is he saying that in those 4 games where we lost out of 7, that the execution wasn't right, the process wasn't right, and you don't win? I mean, whose job is it for the process, though? Is that not coming from him? Obviously, the execution is the players, but the process to get them to perform like that is surely on him and the coaches, you know, because they're the ones that are the process. The execution is only what the players can do. So yeah, I'm a little bit unsure about that one. Obviously, it's going to be a very, very difficult game. I've said this to you guys before on these press conference reactions. I don't really ever find Erik ten Hag's press conferences that inspiring, to be honest. I think he's quite... You can tell he doesn't like the press. You can tell he doesn't want to speak to them. You can tell he's more happy out, you know, on the pitch, coaching the players. But I think this is an important part of obviously being a Manchester United manager. You need somebody who has that bit of charisma, who has that bit of, like, you come away from the press conference and you feel inspired and you feel motivated. And hopefully he is like that away from the cameras, but obviously we won't ever know that, will we? Like, there's no way we can be inside the dressing room to see how he speaks to the players and how it looks like from their body language of how they react to him, you know? But yeah, we'll have to just wait and see what happens. Obviously, tomorrow is a massive, massive game, and we have to win it. If we don't win it, then we're probably just going to be going either completely out of Europe or we'll be in the Europa come January, is it, when the next rounds happen. Yeah, let's see what a couple of people are saying in the chat really quickly, just before we come back to the press conference. Mila says, what kind of football do we want to play? We don't attack or defend. We control the games only if opponent wants us to have the ball. That's a fair point. I mean, yeah, whenever anybody presses us, we're very difficult at, you know, keeping the possession, which is obviously an issue. Royden says, are the young players voting to change how we do? No, guys, the younger players will get their chance. You can't just throw them young players in the deep end, say swim. I think you kind of can. I'm not saying play a whole first 11 of under 21s who've never played professional football again, but ever in their career. But I think, you know, people like Hannibal they've done the loan to the Championship. They've earned their chance. I think there's no reason why you shouldn't be playing them, to be honest. Like, it's not like they've literally just come through the academy and they've never played against like proper men before. They've been playing against like boys. Erik ten Hag's then asked about Galatasaray. He says, we know that Galatasaray's quality is not only Zaha and Icardi, but there's Mertens, Ziyech. They have a lot more, and it's about the team. We have to defend that and have to be at our best to get the right result. Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with that. I mean, Galatasaray are a far better team than Crystal Palace. Let's be clear about that. Galatasaray have some very, very dangerous players. Like he said, Zaha, Icardi, Mertens, Ziyech. I mean, I would even argue, some of you might think I'm deluded, but I would, at this moment in time, based on how our team is playing, I genuinely would probably take all of those players and put them in our team, in our attack at the moment, because our attack is completely dysfunctional, you know? We've got no right winger. Sancho's obviously suspended. Anthony's had all of this stuff going on. You've got Pellistri, who I think could be a good player, but he's not on the level of any of those names. I genuinely would take that front four ahead of what we have at the moment. You know, I'd have Zaha on the left, Ziyech on the right, and Icardi and Mertens as maybe two strikers. Like, I would definitely take that. So it's not going to be an easy match. They're very, very difficult players, very, very good quality. But obviously we have to win. A draw isn't good enough. A loss obviously is completely unacceptable. Not because I think this whole stance of, oh, we're Manchester United, we should win every game. I just mean in the context of where we are at this point. Those players, if they can't go out and get a win tomorrow and they can't motivate themselves in front of Old Trafford, then that's the people you need to start be looking at, right? We just need to look at those players. Yeah, just to be very, very clear, I 100% back Erik ten Hag. I 100% think he's the right person for the job. I've said that to you guys many, many times on this stream. I think Erik ten Hag has done well since he's been here. I think that we probably all knew that where we are now was going to happen at some point. We all knew that a lot of those players in the squad were average. We all knew that one or two injuries away from our best players, and we were left with people like Maguire, Johnny Evans, Amrabat at left back. You know, the list goes on and on and on. Like, as much as I like Hannibal, as much as I like these youth players, we should have better people available, you know, more developed people available to kind of take their place. You've got Donny van de Beek, who literally comes on the pitch and looks completely uninterested. You've got McTominay, who, let's be honest, is absolutely awful. We let go of Fred, who was probably our best midfielder after Casemiro. Like, yeah, it's definitely on the players for me. I'm not blaming Erik ten Hag for any of this. It's the players. As Erik ten Hag said earlier on in that press conference, right? He said, well, let me just read that out a bit again, because I think it's really important. Where's it gone? All right, it seems to have disappeared. But yeah, here we go. He says, but if the execution is not right, so the players are the ones who execute it, the process is not right, you don't win. So he is kind of subtly blaming the players, really, because he's saying that they're not executing they're not doing what he's asking them to do. So it is what it is, isn't it? And then he's also asked about Marcus Rashford's form. So he says this, Erik ten Hag speaking about Rashford, he says, the facts are he's not scoring at the moment, but he's had his opportunities, like against Brighton, where he had 5 or 6 occasions in a good spot. If he works hard and invests every day with the right focus, and if the team around him supplies and helps him with movement, then it will come. And Rashford is a player who's capable of scoring a goal in every game. When he's coming in the right spots, he will score. So he's still back in Rashford, which I do agree with. Rashford is a good player. he's in a really bad run of form at the moment, and I think that it can only get better for Marcus Rashford from here. I guess the worst scenario for Rashford is if he starts getting benched. Maybe that's the right decision, though, okay? I think maybe for the better of the team, it is the right decision. But for actual Rashford and for Rashford's development and all the rest of it, if he starts being put on the bench, either it will motivate him and he'll start coming out and actually performing, or it will turn into another kind of Sancho situation where there's, the manager versus the player. Somebody says, what quality do you see in Erik ten Hag that makes him good for the job? Well, what I like about Erik ten Hag, right, is that he's instilled this discipline into Manchester United, right? There's no messing around. The players know that he's the boss, or at least that's what we kind of are made out to be from the outside perspective. I also like the football he played at Ajax. That was why I wanted him. I thought it was, it's a modern style of football. It's very different to what we've had over the last kind of 10 years. And those are why I like Erik ten Hag, right? I'm sure there's some other things I could think of if you really wanted me to go into more detail, but off the spot, that's why I like Erik ten Hag. Let's see if there's anything else from this press conference. It was a little bit of a longer one today. Usually it's only about 10 minutes, but this one seems to have gone on for a bit longer. But yeah, let me know what your score predictions are for the game as well tomorrow, everybody. Please do smash a like on the video if you haven't already, and please do subscribe to the channel if you are new. I'm just waiting to see what the final bits of press conference story is. All right, and then he's asked about Altay Bayindir. He says, you will see, will Bayindir play tomorrow? But we chose in the League Cup to play Onana because Bayindir has to adapt to the England standard. That's why we preferred Andre to play, but we also have to progress Altay, that's clear. He's made a very good impression in training, and he's really developing, so we're really happy with it. We are convinced we have the two right goalkeepers in the squad to do the job for us. So hopefully Bayindir starts tomorrow. I think, obviously, he's just come from the Turkish league. Galatasaray is obviously a Turkish club. This is his opportunity, I think. At home, in the Champions League, I would give Bayindir the start tomorrow. Not because I want Onana out of the club, but what's the point in bringing this goalkeeper in if you're never going to give him any game time? So for me, Bayindir has to start tomorrow. But that is everything that was discussed on the press conference. That is a wrap. We've gone through it all. I'm going to wrap the video up here, everyone. Please make sure to smash a like on the video before you go. Please do subscribe to the channel if you are new. I'll be back later on today with another live show. This has been Daily Red Devil, and I'll catch you all later.